So hello. Thank you for coming today. I have on the phone David Abramovich, faculty at Now I See a Person Institute. My name is Dr. Susan Swim. I'm executive director of Now I See a Person Institute, and we have a wonderful person that we are going to be talking about today with some things that are close to her heart that she would like to share, both about possibly how she came to seeking services at Now I See a Person Institute, but also her journey within the mental illness narrative uh, journey that she was in and kind of came out of. So, wonderful person. Thank you so much for coming.
Hi.
Bye.
So I
So,
just wanted to start, I wanted to talk about the different diagnoses that I had
mhm.
because it wasn't just one. It actually started out as two, and then, they added as we went. And let's see, there were so many. They said that I had severe depression and I had anxiety disorder, and panic disorder, and I was hypervigilant and paranoid and insomnia. There's so many that I can't even remember all of them.
Mhm.
But with each diagnosis came one or two medications.
Mhm.
So after a while, they built up, and I didn't even know what to believe
So, so
after so long.
can I can I ask you, because this is something we were talking about just right prior to us starting recording, and we didn't, of course, know you at this point in time. And how was it when you were first diagnosed? Did you think, well, that certainly makes a lot of sense, or I know you had a lot of trauma at that time. Was it something that at first initially gave you relief, or how was it for you in the beginning?
No, it didn't give me any relief. Um, they honestly made me believe that I was going to be like that for the rest of my life, that there was no cure for me and I would never get better. But, you know, learning that I was acting in accordance to my environment around me and the things that were happening, anybody would act like that. But
Mhm.
I got a diagnosis and medication, and I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I
Mhm.
couldn't make any decisions by myself.
Mhm.
And it's been years and I still question myself. Am I making the right choice? Am I not making the right choice? And
Mhm.
that's just because for so long, every, you know, they had me believing that I didn't know what I was doing. I was crazy. I couldn't function without the medication. I couldn't be around my children because I was too dangerous.
Wow. So how did it come about that, like, do you even remember, like, what someone said to you when they told you that you did have a severe mental illness diagnosis?
Um, yeah, it was, I'm trying to think, hold on a second, because I'm trying to think of the first thing that they said my issue was.
Mhm. And when you're talking
I
about
didn't like going out in public, so
Mhm.
they said that I was paranoid, I had anxiety and panic disorder.
Okay. Okay. And who can you tell me who, like, they were? Like, were
Um, Psychiatrists that were ordered by the courts.
okay. Okay. So that means that these were doctors that you had to had to see?
Yes, I was court ordered, so I didn't have a choice,
Mhm, mhm,
because if I didn't go along with the court orders in participating with the doctors that they sent me to, their doctors,
mhm.
then I would fault on my case. And that was when I had an active case open.
Okay, so so that oh geez, so that well, you didn't have a choice to go or not go.
Right.
Um,
It was either you go here, you see these doctors, you take this medication, or you can't see your children.
mhm. And that's what you were told by the social workers then that were
I
working
would
for the state.
this yeah, the social workers, and also one of the investigators
Okay.
that was working with the social workers.
Okay. So this was like before there was even, well, I guess there was an open case because the children weren't with you, but they were still investigating the case when
Right.
this decision was made that you were mentally ill
And I was dangerous.
and you were dangerous to your children. Okay.
Right.
So before this, I know there was trauma. And before the diagnosis and the temporary loss of your children to the state's jurisdiction, um, did you think that there was something wrong with you?
No,
No. Okay.
no.
Okay.
I was
So,
a functioning,
mhm,
well, I was a functioning person in society. I took my kids
mhm,
to school like any other person. I worked, I lived my life.
mhm, mhm. Okay. Okay. So, how long do you suppose it took that you did believe this, that what they were telling you?
I believed them up until I would say I was working with your institute,
Mhm. And so
and
how
even a little bit after that, because I was still going through the whole process. It's been maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe more.
Mhm. So it was 4 or 5 years that you believed that there was some substantial wrong with the way that you thought about the world and behaved in the world?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
absolutely. And they convinced me that I didn't know what I was doing as a person or a parent.
Okay.
And then they tried to show me what they thought was acceptable.
Okay. And so were there many days or one day or
Oh, there were many. There were so many. I'd say I've done every kind of therapy that there is possibly is.
Mhm.
All the different psychiatrists, because they had me go into the clinics, and I would see different ones. And then I'd say after the first 2 years, it came to a point where I was afraid to sleep because of the medication. I was afraid I wasn't going to wake up.
Mhm.
So I went to a VA clinic,
Mhm.
and I took all my medicine. And at that point, that doctor was the first one that said to me, "You shouldn't be taking these medications."
Mhm. Mhm. And did they inform you why?
Yes, he said because they could cause kidney failure.
Mhm.
They could cause, serious health issues in the long run.
Mhm.
Plus, they were having counter reactions.
Okay. Such as?
Um, I was, because of a high level of one of the medications, I was getting what they call serotonin syndrome, where
Mhm.
like my hands and my feet would not swell up, but they would freeze to the point where I couldn't move them.
Mm. Wow. Okay.
Um, Several times I was in the hospital, and the medications were so strong that they would literally have to come in and shake me and wake me up because my heart rate was going too low.
Wow. Okay.
But they would still insist I took them because they insisted that something was wrong with me. When all reality, there's nothing wrong with me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So was there, we're also talking about before we started recording that um that sometimes when people are told that they have a severe mental illness diagnosis and they'll have to be on medication for the rest of their life, that they do kind of lose the self identity that they had, and that along with that they lose self confidence in themselves. So so was that when you started to rethink all of this? Is when you were in the hospital and the doctors told you that, or
You broke up on the last part. I'm sorry.
oh, I'm so sorry. So on the part, I think it perhaps was the one where I said, then when you were in the hospital and you were hearing this from doctors that you were on many medications, that they were surprised at the amounts and the types of medications that you were on. Is that when you started rethinking this?
No,
Okay.
I mean, I went along with what he had said, where, he started consolidating and taking me off of medications, but I still believed that there was something wrong with me,
Okay.
for the simple fact that for so long I had diagnosis after diagnosis. We're talking years. So, but it wasn't until, like I said, even when I started talking to you guys at the Institute, I was still believing that there was something wrong with me. And if I didn't take my medication like I was supposed to on time every day,
Mm-hmm.
that I was going to have like a freak out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like an episode, right? That's what we
Right.
hear. If I
Yeah.
don't get on time, then I'm going to have an episode.
Right. I could go into a panic attack that'll last all night.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So it was a time that you were afraid then of yourself.
Yeah. For a very long time.
And
Second
now,
guess myself. Am I doing this right? Am I doing that right?
mhm, that must have been pretty hard, right?
Yeah. It was very hard to not even believe my own judgment,
Mm-hmm.
even on the smallest thing.
I hate to say that, but I've heard other people say that too. And it just sounds so really, it sounds so dreadful that, you know, that that we lose this 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 confidence in ourselves as thinkers and doers and parents and employees and things like that. Were you also, I think you had also said at one point in time you were also afraid of driving. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't drive for years.
Hmm.
I didn't drive for maybe 4 years.
Mhm.
I
And
was afraid to ride in a car.
do you know what that was about? Or
No idea.
so at one point in time, like your self agency, what you thought you could do was really compromised. And then today you're doing all those things that you didn't do for about 4 years. So
Yeah.
what do you think, like, if you think of just what contributed to your journey of seeing yourself as a person again, as a person who has ups and downs and good and bad, and not a perfect person, I don't think any of us are, but just a simple person, not a person who is disabled.
Well, it's just realizing that I've always done this myself, and
Mhm.
there was nothing wrong with me before. And then, slowly just started becoming the person that I was meant to be, because with all those medications for so long, I didn't even know who I was. I
Mhm.
mean, I knew who I was as a person. I was coherent, but I didn't know the things I liked to do. I didn't know the places I'd like to go, just because for so long I didn't go anywhere because I was afraid. But now I don't even hesitate to go anywhere.
Mhm. Mhm.
At the drop of a dime, go and do something unexpected. But back then, I would have never trusted my own judgment. I would have been like, no, maybe I shouldn't do that. That's a bad idea. Something's going to happen.
Mhm. Mhm. And so you kind of see that professionals telling you that you couldn't do things, that you had to watch yourself because you could be harmful to yourself or others, kind of
Exactly.
led to that, right?
Exactly.
And if you're
Exactly.
told something often enough by enough people that appear in a position of power, then I guess we believe it.
Exactly.
And so, I think one of the things that we try to do in these podcasts is to help people have hope that might have been in the situation that you were previously. So, w- what kind of thoughts that you would have for people that found themselves living in these not really truly happy times, right? And not times where they feel that I think there's a part of me that thinks we all have to really believe in ourselves to move forward. Um, but not even having that belief in yourself. What do you think would be some helpful things to be able to either give advice or share or just reflect on what you would hope for them?
Well, I hope that, you know, everyone finds clarity within themselves to do what they believe. Because if you have a feeling that this ain't right, it probably isn't. But like I just don't give up hope, because nothing lasts forever. You know, I might be going through something, but it's not going to last forever, and then it usually ends up not being as bad as I thought it was going to be in the first place.
Hmm. Hmm. So, for example, if you would have come to us and we would have said something to you like, "Oh, you don't need to be on any of that medication," or "You don't really have a diagnosis," what would you have thought of us?
I probably wouldn't have believed you.
Mm-mm. Yeah, you might have thought that there was vastly wrong with us, right?
Right,
that.
right. Well, that's why, over time, I started believing in myself.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And maybe you could talk about that a little bit more, because I think that is so profound, is that because I think that we saw the same things that you were doing. One of the things is that we would never tell people what medications to be on. That's not our role. Our role is to help people heal in the journeys that they've had. And, most of the people, as you know, that come to us have had severe trauma, and we see symptoms as a that are due because they did have severe trauma. And but we do believe that often a diagnosis hides that severe trauma, because you're just talking about the diagnosis and not the journey that someone went through that is so difficult, or the journey that they're still going through that's so difficult.
Right.
I think that when, I'm just trying to think back, when you started kind of questioning the amount of medications that you were on, and what that was doing to some of the organs in your body, is when you started re-looking at all of this. And maybe, as I'm talking, I'm just thinking, but maybe we provided that space to where you could think for yourself.
Yes, you guys absolutely did. Absolutely, and not even to the point where, of, my organs failing and stuff, but even just the fact that I was so heavily medicated that once I started being like, oh, I will go do these things, with the kids, or we will go do that.
Hmm.
And I couldn't physically do it because I
Hmm.
was too tired, or I was falling asleep, or, and after so many times of having to cancel, I just came to the realization, like, something's got to change,
Hmm.
but nobody can change that but me.
Hmm.
And that's when I started looking into not all the diagnoses as one big quotation of
Hmm.
who I was, but
Hmm.
who I was inside, and why were they giving me these diagnoses.
Hmm. Hmm. And, you know, just something that maybe, and then we'll wrap this up, is that, but the diagnosis just didn't stop with you. It also went on to your children, right? While you were
Yes,
still in that system.
yes.
And that's kind of where you put your foot down. Is that correct as well?
Yes, it is. At first I didn't have, I don't want to say I didn't have the power, but because um at that time, they weren't with me, but they had heavily medicated my child.
Hmm.
And I knew that she wasn't what they were saying she was.
Hmm. Hmm. Right.
And like I said, it was court ordered, and it was court ordered on her too.
Wow. How old
But
was
if you
she?
take, she was like 7 when they first started with all that with her.
Wow. Okay.
Because I remember when she was 9, and I went to, it was like the first week, and I went to the psychiatrist that they had for her because I wanted to take her off of the medication safely. And the doctor turned around and looked at my child and said, "Are you sure you don't want to take this medicine anymore?" And I said, "She's 9." And that's the only reason I remember exactly how old she was, because I was like, "She's 9. How would she know if
Hmm.
she needs that medicine?"
Hmm.
And she even, when we were getting her off of it, because we had, we tapered down, if she started getting upset, or Mom, I have to take my medicine. And I
Oh,
tell her, you don't need it. And
wow.
she would go into, a little bit of a panic, because for so long,
Mhm.
she thought that she was exactly what they told her she was. And that if she didn't have that, she was going to hurt people. And she was a child.
Wow. Mm. So, so, you know, David, I don't know if you have any thoughts or reflections on this, and then we could ask this wonderful person some of their final thoughts, but you had a chance to listen.
Yeah. Firstly, I want to say that you and your family are definitely heroes um, for going through such a difficult time that was imposed upon you um, and made you feel a particular way um, about yourself and about your children. And I just wanted to say, from listening to your stories and listening to you for the past couple of years, I know that you are a wonderful and courageous mother um, who was able to persevere um, and make an amazing life for yourself and children, despite um, the hole that you were placed in by the system. And I think that's remarkable. And I wish you only the best in the future. And I know that good things are going to happen.
Thank you. And I just have to say that you guys are the first ones, the only ones that made me feel like I had a choice in what I could do with my life, if that makes any kind of sense.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like I felt like I couldn't make my own choices because I was being told what to do for so long, and you guys never did that to me.
Mhm.
Well,
You
the
know,
proof is in the pudding, like you're making choices for yourself and your children right now, and you're doing a remarkable job. So you should never doubt yourself ever again.
and I'm just going to segue a little bit, but it's interesting because at that point in time, one of our other colleagues, Emma, and I were primarily talking, and then David was able to join us. And I remember it was like two or three, maybe it was the second or third session, and you texted um, that um, that your daughter was doing something, and what should you do? And I remember thinking to myself, and I remember sharing this with Emma, and I was like, oh my goodness, she's used to people telling her what to do.
Yeah.
Like she's used to, like, somehow I'm going to have these very clever ideas to tell you what to do with your child and somehow make everything better. Not that I wouldn't want to do that, but I don't think any of us are capable of that as human beings. And I didn't know your daughter very well at that point in time. And I didn't want to be like, well, let's call her Susan. Oh, Susan, what are you doing wrong here? Like, I think our position is that we hold the utmost respect and honor for our clients, and we're there to assist them in ways that they want us to assist them. We aren't there ever to tell them how to lead their lives.
Right.
And, all of our clients, like David said, are heroes and heroines. And it's very sad when you when you do have conversations with people and they do think that they have this disease that permits them from being like everybody else in the world.
Right.
And it for us, in our perception of how we have heard our clients, it really, it limits them in what they feel like they can and they can't do, as far as even driving a car or doing homework with their children. or just making very simple decisions that somehow that freedom that they had at one point in time is taken away. And then were you going to say something?
No, I was gonna say exactly,
Mhm.
because even the simplest things, I was so afraid I was gonna do it wrong.
Mhm. Mhm.
I was gonna react wrong or do the wrong thing, make the wrong decision because I was afraid if I did the wrong thing, that what the consequences for that would
Yes,
be.
exactly. That's what was going through my mind. So the consequences were children.
Right,
And so you were always on this slippery slope. Are you doing the right thing? Because one false step and it's all over.
right,
Not that you're going to do something. I wasn't saying that you were going to do something to your children, because you never did anything. That's another story, but you never did anything to the
right.
children. But but it's a slippery slope when people are looking and monitoring you to see if you're a good parent or not.
Right. And after the monitoring and stuff, for a very long time, I was always, you know, second guessing myself because I was afraid that someone might be looking.
Mhm.
Even though
Mhm.
I wasn't doing anything wrong,
Mhm.
other people's perceptions, you know.
And I think that someone would have to go through, not anybody would want to go through this, but someone would have to go through having their child taken away to know what that's like. It's probably one of the worst things that could ever happen to a parent. And for a parent to be frightened and having panic attacks or whatever you want to call them, but just being very frightened of life, not having a support system. But well, you have a support system, but that support system doesn't see the rightness in you. It's a very, very hard existence.
Yeah.
So, and then maybe you could just let people today, know that you haven't been on medication, that you do not see yourself as a diagnosis, that maybe at times you kind of question yourself, but who doesn't do that?
Right. I always have to try to tell myself, okay, well, this is a normal reaction,
Mhm. Mhm.
but I honestly, I haven't been on any medication in, I'd say, not a year and a half, but just a little less than a year and a half.
Mhm.
And that includes all medication,
Mhm.
all medication.
Mhm. Mhm. And so now you can kind of measure the difference, right?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I don't even want to say it's my energy, but like a lot of the medications made me hungry all the time and I was eating all the time. And then I was, upset about that. And then, this medication made me feel tired. And then this one woke me up. And it was just too much. I don't live my life like that anymore.
Mhm. So we appreciate very much you spending this time with us today, and we will be talking to you next week and just finding out a little bit about your heroic journey. And we appreciate your voice, and thank you so much for participating in this. I think that your voice is going to be helpful to other people that find themselves going through similar hard times, or maybe a family member that's going through similar times. So thank you so much for today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.